Hi everyone, this is Gwendolyn Go, your desperate housewife who crafts. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to show you how I color a flower, this beautiful majestic bloom it's called, from Altenew, with my Spectrum Noir Illustrator markers. I'll also be using my Prismacolor pencils to add more detail to the flower. So I started coloring this beautiful flower from Altenew, and I started with the lightest color, which was LV1. Then I went in with my darkest marker, which is PL3, to add shading to the flower. So I like to put in the lightest first and then go in with the darkest, the medium, and so on, and then finish off with the lightest. Here I put the shading in between where the two petals meet, because that's where the sun will have problems, will have more difficulty going into the flower. So that's why you should put the darker, you should shade that area darker. And then as the leaf comes out from the flower, the sun will have more access to it, and then it becomes lighter. So now you always hear people say, when you're shading, think of where the sun is coming from, and that's where you put your shading and your light. Now, that's obviously very, well, it's an obvious thing to think about, except that I have tried to look to see where the sun is coming from, and it's not very easy when I look on real plants. I think it's because in my room the sun is coming from behind the plant, so it's kind of like I'm looking at the darkest part and the lightest part is behind the flower, so well, it's very complicated for me. So in this video, I'm not just going to say think of where the sun is coming from, where the light's coming from. Actually, I'm not even going to talk about where the light's coming from. So I'm just going to give you some tips about how to color each leaf to give it more movement and so to make it look more realistic. So here you see I'm coming in with my Prismacolor pencils. I went in first, flicked on some darker colors, and then flicked on the lighter color, and then went back in to flick on some darker color. So I'm going to speed up the video a little bit and put on some music and come back to where I think needs more explanation. So after coloring 3 petals, I decided that 3 markers was not enough. I didn't like the way the blending was being done. So I added another color, HB2. So I was using PL3, which is the darkest one I'm using now. And now I'm going over it with HB2 before going over it with HB1 and then LV1. So I'm going to be doing all my petals this way. So I'll either be putting down the lightest colors first, lightest color first, and then going with the darkest, medium, and so on. Or in the next petal, you'll see that I decided to start with a darker color, just to see whether it was better to blend it that way or not. You'll see me go back when I'm coloring my petals, go back over the other petals if I feel I'm not happy with it. And now I'm just lining it. I decided I thought I'll line my petals because I want a no line coloring, to line it with my color pencils, but then you'll see later on I decided to line them with my markers. So here I put in the lightest color again, and then the darkest color, and here I'm going to show you how I make a petal bend backwards. First I put in the darkest color where the petal meets the flower, and I go in with my medium and so on. And then at the tip of this petal I do the same. I put my darkest color, the medium, and I go over everything with my lightest color, but I leave the center of the petal relatively light because that's where the light is going to hit the flower the most. As the petal bends backwards, it's going to be in a little bit of a shadow. That's why you have to add a darker color at the tip. So darker colors at two extremities of the petal and leave the center much clearer, and you'll have a petal with movement. So you see whenever I go over my leaf, so I start with the dark, the medium, so on, and finish with the lightest. I do that because the lightest color will take away some of the darkest color, and that helps with the blending. But sometimes it takes away too much of the color that's there, so I'll go back in very often with the medium color over it and then blend again with the lightest color. So that's how you do seamless blending. You go over your darkest color with your next color, and if you see there's a streak, you just color in between the color over where there's the streak, where there's a hard line, and that should take away your hard line and give you a nice blend. So I'm going to put on some music now and let you watch the rest of the coloring in a bit piece of from my voice, and I'll come in later to give you more explanations. Enjoy! Now you may be wondering why I'm coloring one petal at a time and I'm jumping from one petal opposite of the flower to another. Why am I not coloring all the petals together, put down all the lightest color on all the petals and then go over it, the whole flower at a time instead of one petal at a time? What I realized actually that while I was practicing blending is that you can blend the colors while the ink is still wet. Once the ink has dried up, it's more difficult, almost impossible to blend the colors. That's why I'm working one petal at a time. And just like with watercolors, if you color two petals side by side at the same time, they might bleed into each other. That's why if you want to color a petal next to a petal you just colored, let the first petal dry first, color in another petal, and then come back to it once it's dry. So that's why you see me coloring petal by petal and going on coloring petals that are not next to each other. Now this whole flower took me about an hour, and I think looking at the recording times of my videos, because I don't notice when I'm coloring how long it takes, but it took me about an hour and 20 minutes to color. So it's not 20 minutes as you see on this video, but an hour and a half. But I thoroughly enjoyed this coloring session. It's so calming, and if you put on some calm piano music or even some meditation at the same time, you're guaranteed a totally really relaxing experience. And you will feel tired afterwards, of course, but it's a really nice tiredness and you'll have a good night's sleep. So I'm almost finished with this flower. I'm going to jump ahead towards the end so that you don't have to watch the same steps I do over and over again. So I finished coloring all the petals and I'm coloring the inside of the flower now, and I've decided to use a peachy color. So here I'm using FS7 and I'm going in with B01. And I also decided to add some sparkle to it by using my Spectrum Noir sparkle pen, and that adds a really nice shine to the center of my flower. So well, that's my flower finished. I hope you enjoyed the video and that you got some useful tips about how to color your florals with alcohol markers. This is the finished card I made using an Altenew stencil, and you see that the background, the stencil, color stencil, is shiny because I used a clear gel by Lukas over the colored stencil. This is one of the techniques I learned during a course called Celebration Stencil Techniques over an Altenew Academy. And I'm doing lots of courses to qualify for the Altenew certification program. Well, I'm going to be coming out with a new video soon to show you how I colored this card using only my Spectrum Noir. So if you want to know how to do this, subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already, and you'll get a notification when this video comes up. Thanks for watching and see you real soon. Bye!